Welcome to Retirement in Focus with Chris Mediate. Chris helps guide local families on the path toward a successful retirement. Chris and the team at Mediate Financial will help you learn about strategies for creating income in retirement, managing your wealth, and minimizing taxes. Welcome to Retirement in Focus with Chris Mediate.
Only about 25% of Americans say they have a written financial plan. That means most of us don't have a specific financial plan. So how can you get a plan in place? Chris Mediate of Mediate Financial walks us through his process for helping you create a comprehensive plan for your retirement. And Chris, it is great to be back with you. You've got a big task at hand here during our show today.
Yes, this is a big one.
That's right. We've talked about this a lot. As I said earlier, only 25% of Americans say they have a written financial plan. And that means most of us don't have a specific financial plan. And it leads me to believe that maybe a lot of people just don't really know what it takes to put together a plan. How do you go about building one?
Which is right. I mean, everybody should have a plan, right? Because it's the roadmap. It's what dictates every single thing you're doing and planning for that could impact the things that you should be planning for, right? So we talked about those risks and stuff. So a comprehensive financial plan really helps dictate. So I've saved this money, or I'm collecting Social Security. All of these things need to be part of your plan. They need answers, right? So again, a comprehensive plan needs to take this into consideration.
Okay, what all is involved in your comprehensive plan?
So in our plan, remember, portfolios aren't plans, right? So this is key, because when I ask people, what's your plan? People want to show me investments, right? So number one, income plan. So our income plan is first and foremost. That's the first thing we're going to start with, is an income plan. Second, your investment plan. Can't have an income plan when you don't have an investment plan. Okay, that's really critical stage here. Okay, they both go hand in hand together. Third, how about healthcare plan? Okay, a lot of people forget that they, need to plan for healthcare. Inflation longevity plan, that's a big one. Where is those going to come from? So that should be factored into this as well. And then last but not least, we'd say legacy. Okay, so your legacy, your estate. These are all part of questions and answers that should be part of your financial plan. So there is a lot that goes into it.
Okay, let's go through each one of these and have you kind of take us into the weeds a little bit more. Starting with income. You must have income in order to have a retirement plan, have retirement in general.
This sets the tone. So your income, remember, this is what people do. You're retiring, you're replacing your paycheck. Where and how, where is my money coming from? Where is my income going to come from? How is it going to come? How long is it going to last? Roll into there now. Social Security, we talk about part of a pension review, right? So in your income plan, what are we looking at? Where my money's coming from, right? First and foremost, what my income and expenses are. So I need to have a proper analysis so that I know what my number truly is. What's got to be covered for base expenses? What's got to be covered to live a life, right? So we want to do that. How am I covering inflation? That's part of your income plan. So again, how am I going to handle inflation? How am I going to handle longevity? The question comes up. What if I live too long? Am I going to outlive my money? So we know longevity needs to be in there. And last, we say Social Security, not last, but a Social Security analysis, because guess what? Most of us are relying on Social Security. So how and when do I claim Social Security? How does it fit? When is the proper time that I should be taking it, right? Looking at that as an income plan, survivorship plan. And then last but not least, if you have a pension, right, we're doing a pension analysis, pension review as part of, again, that overall income plan. So as you can see, it's not just, hey, I'm collecting Social Security. It's a comprehensive way so that you can see exactly where your money is coming from.
And as we know, when someone asks the question, how much income do I need? That's different for everybody. So that's a whole different conversation.
It's personal, right? So again, your lifestyle is going to dictate the amount of income of which you want to receive. We cannot forget that. Get away from the net worth. I mean, it's there. That's there to help you. But the first and foremost should be, how am I, when we're working, if you think about this, Amy, when we're working, what are we doing with we're depositing our paycheck, we're paying our bills, it's how we save, it's how we go on vacation. When we retire, that does not change. Remember that. Do not forget that. That does not change.
Okay, once the income plan is established, That's a big one. What's
Big
next?
one. Investment plan. So as I mentioned before, why do those go hand in hand? So I always call this can't put the cart before the horse, right? So what a lot of people want to talk about, or maybe when they go in and speak to maybe other advisors, and again, not knocking other advisors, but what is somebody, how great my investments are, how great I've done this year, how great my plan is. The problem with doing that is the investment part, okay, has to be dictated again. How much income do I need? So they all got to go hand in hand simply because I don't want to focus on the investments and the risk when I don't know exactly how much income I'm going to need. Okay, so income's going to establish it. My investment plan is going to work off that. Once I know that number, now I can create my investment plan because we're worrying about how much risk you're taking in that plan, right? How much volatility do you have in that plan? How much should you be allocating to the market and how much maybe shouldn't you, right? And again, that all ties in together, this comprehensive plan, because you can't have one without the other. They got to work together. The problem is people want to jump too much to the investment, not go back and focus on the income. Income dictates, then the investment plan is going to follow suit so that it can handle what the income plan needs and it can be an appropriate risk level.
And again, investment also very personal.
Very personal.
Everybody feels differently about how risky they want to be.
They do. And you know, and I tell people when someone says, I think I'm conservative or I think I'm an aggressive investor, and I tell everybody, listen, that's very subjective because my definition of conservative, Amy, could be completely different than yours, right? So when people talk about risk and how it is, it's got to fit your financial plan. There's appropriate risk, right? There's necessary risk, and then there's unnecessary risk. So most people on their incomes, and I know most people that I deal with, Amy, don't want risk on their income. So we want to remove unnecessary risk from where it's not necessary. Remember, we made it to the top of the mountain. There's nowhere else to go. Why am I risking something I've already made? The risk level that you're taking, that you're allocating to the market has to be dictated, right, by the rest of the way your financial plan is set up, and then that's going to determine appropriate risk.
Okay, income and investments, we're off to a great start. Thank you so much, Chris. The reality is most of us don't have that written financial plan for retirement. It sounds intimidating, but Chris is making it simple for us today by breaking down what that process looks like. So stay tuned.
Everybody needs a plan. If Carol's ever going to retire, she needs a plan. So does Bob. Jim and Susan, they need a plan. And Puddles over there, yeah, he's going to need a plan too. You? Yeah, you probably need a plan. Whoever you are, whatever you do, you can use a plan for retirement. We can help.
You have a club for every scenario. A driver for the long holes. Wedges to get you over the hazards. And a putter for when you need a touch of finesse. What about your retirement? Will you have enough to play the back nine? Call to set your 15-minute phone visit today and let's find out. Get a second set of eyes on your retirement plan.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Creating a comprehensive retirement income plan can sound complicated, even confusing, but Chris Mediate of Mediate Financial is making it simple for us and walking us through their process. And I know we've already kind of gone through the really big ones, income and then investment. Each one of these is big in their own right. Now I want you to talk about the T word, the tax, the tax process, the impact of taxes, because we don't leave taxes behind in retirement.
No, I mean, this is part of any really good comprehensive financial plan, Amy. We talked about it being a hidden risk, right? And it's true because taxes impact the ability for us to spend money, to grow money, to pass on, okay? So when you're doing a proper tax analysis, which should be part of every comprehensive plan, the things that you're looking at is, you know, what exactly am I doing with my qualified accounts, right? So most of us save in 401ks and IRAs, and they start to realize, okay, that is potentially taxable to me once I start withdrawing. So what you're looking at is, okay, how does that fit into my distribution plan? Is there things that I could be doing in that plan to reduce taxes for me later? So that might mean initially, right, I'm drawing more money out now, staying in the current tax bracket that I'm in. That way I'm pulling money out for my future for later. And it's called stuffing the tax bracket. So that's one way of doing it. We might be looking at, okay, is there a way for me to be able to leverage how I'm looking at maybe moving a taxable event to me to something that could be tax-free later. So we might be talking then again through your tax plan about, we want to prevent taxes from becoming a bigger burden in the future. So maybe we have the opportunity now to reduce taxes to get them maybe in tax-free accounts such as Roth IRAs or potentially tax-free life insurance, things that we know that we're, again, sliding ourselves down, taxable, tax deferred to tax-free. We want that to be looked at into our plan. So again, taxes becomes an issue that needs to be addressed in your plan because it is something that you're going to deal with, and most people don't know how to handle it.
Okay, speaking of what you're going to deal with, a lot of people think, I'm fine. My family has a great health history. I won't have any problems. I'm sure of it. Well, we never know, of course. And so healthcare costs, we don't ever want to overlook that. That makes up a big part of your process.
So healthcare cost, again, very hidden, very surprising about how we're going to go about handling it. Because again, when we retire, we realize, okay, all of a sudden, as we start to get older, right? We end up going to the doctors more. Maybe we're on medicines more, right? So part of that process is, number one, can my health plan handle future healthcare costs, right? We all think, okay, we can handle it out of the start. What about 10 years down the road? What about 15 years down the road? So you want to make sure that's addressed. And part of our process is looking at healthcare over the years. But also, again, when we start to talk about Medicare, how overlooked is that? I know if I get older, I don't want to be worrying about I can't go to the doctors because it's going to cost me too much money. So your Medicare process selection should be built into your financial plan because, again, if I'm doing that right, or I'm aware of the cost, or I know how to handle if my premium goes up, or I'm choosing the right plan, this is going to cost me X amount of dollars, I want to be able to have that factored into this. And then what do we say? Now my vision, my dental, we know our teeth become an issue. Are we handling, okay, how am I choosing those options? Again, it's in the know. That doesn't mean, hey, go out and buy the best plan. I suggest you do. I suggest you get the most comprehensive plan. I like to pay now, not pay later, okay? But again, if we're aware of it, if we're aware of the cost, and then we can come back and say, my financial plan has answered that. So if my costs are going up, I know how I'm going to handle my healthcare. And I think, again, every good plan should be being able to do that because, again, as we get older, we never want to worry about not being able to get the care we deserve and the care we need. And we can get anything if we plan for it.
So true. And last but not least, where does legacy planning fit into your process?
Such a great question. Legacy planning comes into this, again, because you start to talk about values. You start to talk about what it means for people. And they may want to take care of grandkids. They may want to take care of kids. So legacy planning is a big one, and we have to have that conversation now. So, we talked in some early segments about my buckets, and we talked about a growth bucket. Sometimes that's where some of that conversation comes out is how much money maybe do we want to allocate to something we're not going to use today? Remember, this is your plan, right? So when we're talking about it, can we earmark something? Can we make it intentional? Can we give it a purpose? And you can. So if it's something that we know we want to be nice and big in the future and leave this wonderful legacy, if we have handled our income right, stop and think about this. We handled our income properly.
All the way back to where we started.
All the way back where we started. We know we can handle that. We know we handle the hidden risks. We know we have our investment plan. We know how our investments fit to our income plan. Then we can determine healthcare, all of those things. We can determine exactly, okay, we know this particular amount of money isn't necessary for you to live on, isn't necessary for you to worry about inflation. So now we can get really real about that legacy conversation because it's going to come up and we can say, look, we already have created that specific bucket or that specific pot of money. We can label it, make it intentional, and we call that legacy. And I think that's really important. Again, have the conversation, talk about it. If it's something you want, it should be built into your financial plan.
Chris, great information. This process it's so important. It's so important that we bump that number of having more people have that overall financial plan.
25%, Amy. I mean, again,
pretty low.
When you want to know what you're doing with your money, that's where a financial plan, a written comprehensive plan, should cover this, because guess what? We can go on and live and not worry about all these other forces. We can say, I got it handled.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. And straight ahead, Chris shares signs you might need a new advisor. And still to come, Chris answers some of your questions. Stay with us.
How much do you have saved for retirement? Now, cut that number in half. That's the impact inflation could have. Think about what that could do to your lifestyle and spending power in retirement. Inflation is on the rise. How can you protect your retirement dreams? Start by getting this free guide to understand inflation and the 5 easy steps you can take to help keep it from downgrading your retirement. You can't stop inflation, but if you act now, you may be able to minimize its impact on your retirement. Get your free copy now.
Today, Chris has been breaking down his process for helping you create a retirement plan. If you don't have a plan in place, is that the first sign you might need a new advisor, Chris?
Thanks, Amy. Let's talk about this week's topic on retirement Clearview. And this is a big one. This is, I know, something that weighs on people's minds, but let's get right into why maybe some signs you need a new advisor. I'm not one to pick on other advisors, and nor am I trying to do that. I'm just simply trying to answer a question and kind of go through the steps that, or the reasons maybe why you would be looking at potentially looking for a new advisor. And the first and foremost one that I would say is your current advisor only calls, and I say only calls when they want to make trades to your account. And if you stop and think about that, you know, as you hear me say it, what's the problem with that situation is you're not really sure, again, how this advisor most likely is getting paid. Or this advisor is going to call you and say, hey, I want to go ahead and get out of this position and I want to buy this position because this position isn't as good as this position. The problem with doing that is we're only building that relationship based on the trade, which means what? It doesn't mean that the trade was bad or that this could be a problem. But again, is it a compensation issue? So if I ask the question and something that you should answer, and I always say follow the money, right? How does one get compensated? So if it's compensated by trades, obviously that's something that you want to be aware of ahead of time. But most importantly, it's probably a breakdown of the communication, simply because is this person or this advisor following your goals? Are they managing the rest of your financial plan? Or are they just managing that particular investment? And how does that overall investment fit in your entire financial plan? And how are we using that money? So if it's just based on trading, you're not really necessarily sure that that advisor is following the way that your financial plan should go. The second one that I would say is your financial situation is changing, but the advice isn't. This is what we call the status quo. This means, hey, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. But do you know if it's not broke? Do you realize how, okay, all of a sudden your life has changed, but your financial plan has not adapted with that? And that could simply mean I'm getting older, I've had a life event, maybe now you're single and your situation has dramatically changed. Maybe you're a widow or a widower. And again, doesn't that mean that your financial life has changed? Maybe now you're requiring a different income. Maybe now you're worrying about your legacy. Maybe this is something that you want to pass on. Maybe now you're also maybe worried about your longevity. So your financial plan hasn't really adapted to it simply because this person, again, is only managing what they know. There's no communication. There's nothing going through, again, to follow through how my financial plan is working and whether or not you're feeling comfortable with, hey, my life has changed. Maybe my plan should. So that becomes a really, really big problem. Third, and this one, I do hear from time and time again, more often than I would care to, my advisor doesn't listen. And that means more specifically, doesn't listen to you. And what's that mean? Well, it means that you might have a problem, a question, a change in direction, a change in investment philosophy, a change in your risk. But guess what? That person maybe doesn't care. They're like, nope, it's either my way or the highway. They don't want to hear what you have to say about it. So that becomes a problem because you're trying to convey something and that advisor, it's going right over their head and they're continuing just to do what they do. So again, remember, and this is really key, communication, just like in a marriage, is key to the success of a marriage. This is a marriage. This is your money. When you're hiring an advisor, this is you guys being together, right? So this is a marriage of the advisor helping you meet your goals. So if you're communicating and that advisor is not listening, then we definitely have a problem because that means that the communication barrier is not the same. And when our communication is not the same, then it could be a problem. We could become unhappy, or we might not even just know our direction. So again, listening, communication, and an advisor adapting with you, listening to your concerns and learning, and coming back and making suggestions that can help you. And again, this comes back to education. Maybe that advisor will need to educate you a little bit more, but you want to know that he or she has heard you. Your advisor, most importantly now, when we say doesn't listen, now you're saying your advisor doesn't listen to your spouse. Your spouse has concerns. Remember, this is a partnership. It's not a one-way. If the whole conversation is directed to one spouse over the other, worrying about that spouse's goals, that becomes a problem. Remember, again, communication is key. When you're married, this is both your money. This is important because, again, do I have a proper survivorship plan in place? My spouse might be concerned because maybe as a female, she knows and has fear that she's going to be living longer than her husband. And so guess what? She has a lot to say in what's going to happen inside that entire income and that entire financial plan because she's concerned that maybe there's too much risk, or maybe she doesn't or he doesn't understand that there's going to be money left over. So your spouse, the advisor needs to listen to it because, again, this is a communication. This is both of you. And last but not least, you dread actually reaching out and calling. And we know that that is not a good thing. And I don't know maybe why that would be, but again, that means what? As a relationship, I don't have that bonding. I don't feel that this person is listening or acting in my best interest, or this person just is downright nasty. And that becomes a problem because you want to be able to get questions. You don't answered. You don't want to be blown off or somebody say, don't worry about it, everything's okay. And I always say, what's the definition of okay? I always say, show me. Show me you're okay. Be able to back up exactly what those recommendations are so that you can feel good about it. Your questions always should be answered because you deserve those questions to be answered. Remember, part of my job is if you have a question, I need to give you an answer. That's what we do. That's what I do. You want to make sure, again, that you're getting stuff answered correctly. And that's this week's Clear View. Back to you, Amy.
Up next, if you have questions about retirement, stay tuned. Chris has the answers. Stay with us.
Our generation has always believed that a hard day's work is its own reward. So, for some of us, it's hard to turn off that work switch come retirement. But imagine what can happen when that work switch becomes a life switch. Then you realize that every day in retirement is its own reward. We can help you flip the switch to make work days become life days.
It's time now for your questions about retirement. And I know this is always a favorite segment of yours. You ready to go?
It is. I'm ready. Let's go.
Here we go. We've got some work to do. This is from Marilyn in Canfield. My husband has been laid off after 27 years of factory work. We had a good amount of money saved in our emergency fund, so we didn't need to panic immediately. I think we're fine financially if he retires, but I don't think it will mentally be the right choice right now. Who should we talk to? This is so hard because I always think about, well, what will this be like when my husband or I retire, you know, but you never know how you're going to feel. And sometimes the other person might have an idea.
Yeah, I mean, mental transition is a big part of this. Being mentally prepared to take that next step. So in this question, I mean, is it financial? Are we maybe not feeling prepared? Or is my husband thinking maybe I need to keep working, right? These are all questions that have to arise. But guess what? Part of that comes down to, and I hate to say this, Marilyn, okay, comes down to the fact that maybe potentially I have a lack of a plan. So when someone says to me, I think we're okay, I think we might be able to retire, that means that we really don't know that answer. And I think, again, what you want to do, where you want to start is, I think you most likely need to sit down with someone and kind of go over your options, go over what your number is, go over what your entire strategy is, build a comprehensive plan so that you know some of those answers. Because here's the situation. If you're not ready to retire, you can at least figure out when you're ready to retire, right? So now the plan is in place for that day, for that transition, and it might allow her husband to gradually figure out how to get involved in what to do. And so it might be a good transition point. It might be a good mental transition point. But when you say, I don't know, we want to make sure that you do know. And if you don't know, or if you can't, guess what? You want to know that now, right? So that might answer your own question for you. So again, I would seek some advice of, can I do this? And I think that'll set and help with that mental transition to determine whether or not you're ready.
Okay, sounds good. Here's another question from Jason in Boardman. Is it wrong to not want to leave an inheritance for our kids? They seem to argue all the time over everything, even as adults, and nothing ever seems fair enough. Plus, we paid for braces, college, cars, and weddings. I feel like that should be enough.
So
I'll let you handle this one.
So the kids question, people struggle through this one. This becomes more of a legacy question. This becomes more of, it's my life. And remember, when we've always talked about this is extremely personal. So is it a wrong answer? It's not, okay? It's your answer. It's who you want to be. So that's something you have to deal with. It's okay to be selfish. It's okay that if you don't trust your kids, I mean, maybe in it this way, if there's a 2-point to this question, if you're worrying about the kids inheriting money, there are steps you could take, talk to a qualified estate attorney and figure out, is there a way that I can put some strings attached on maybe that inheritance? Maybe that will help, right? If that will alleviate where you can control some of that. Or if not, if you just want to spend it and enjoy yourself because you feel like you earned it, I think that's okay. I think you're allowed to do selfishly what you choose to do with your money. And if you don't trust your kids, I mean, that's something that you say. If they're arguing about stuff, I mean, an inheritance certainly can make things worse. So there's ways to control it. I would say, look at those options first. But if you feel like you're okay to spend it, go ahead.
You have to give yourself permission to be okay with your decision, right?
You have to, because remember this, it's your money, it's your decision, and I think that's the most important thing.
Here's another one from Linda in Columbiana. What are some good resources to help me learn more about my options for Social Security?
So, there's a lot of options available. So you could go to the socialsecurity.gov website. A lot of good information on there to learn about your choices of Social Security. You can learn about what types of options that you have, or again, where I tell somebody, this is where some advisors come in, okay? Because if somebody knows Social Security, there's some really good material that you can find in helping you determine your best options for Social Security. So again, that's something we do in our office. We do have information, but you can find it on the internet. I would say, look, Social Security, the government website is a great resource. It might be something you might want to consider to look and start there. If not, talk to a financial advisor and see what they have.
Okay, great insight as always. Thank you so much, Chris. If you have a question, submit it and we may just answer it on a future show. And if you want to know how to generate lifetime income, reduce your tax bill, and maintain your lifestyle in retirement, reach out now to start planning for your ideal retirement. For Chris and the team at Mediate Financial, I'm Amy Sharp. Thank you for watching us today, and we'll see you next time.